Myron Kerstein is the editor of In the Heights and the co-editor of Tick, Tick, Boom. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Myron, it's great to talk with you today. I wanted to start with both films, just in the sense that you have dozens of film and television credits. But what's unique about this year and your projects is they're both movie musicals. So I wanted to ask you, what is particularly unique and exciting and challenging about working on movie musicals?
Well, it's just another way of telling a story, but in a lot of ways, I don't really treat them any differently. We're trying to move the audience. We're trying to relay plot sometimes. We're trying to convey people's dreams. We're trying to show the arc of somebody struggling to make a musical. And whether you're doing that with, an action film, although I'm not sure anyone has done that yet. But anyways, long story short, I don't think there's a lot of difference between the two. It is exciting for me because I always wanted to make a musical. So for years, I put it out in the universe that I really wanted to make a musical as an editor sometime in my career. And now I get to make, I'm hoping, two of the best this year. So, it's a dream come true.
Yeah, and I wanted to start with Tick, Tick, Boom, which you, as I mentioned, you co-edited with Andrew Weissblum. But I just wanted to get a sense of working with director Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's a first-time film director on Tick, Tick, Boom. Just, what was the process of collaborating with Andrew and collaborating with Lin on, setting the vision for the piece and then working on, getting that final edit?
Well, Andy and Lin were working for many months before they got shut down by COVID. And like everybody else, they didn't know if they're going to actually get back to it. And then 6 months later, they actually finished shooting. And then finally, they made it to director's cut, and Andy had to go off for another job. And so Lin, having a little bit of a shorthand with me and John from In the Heights, invited me into the process. But, it's always different when you come into a film that's already sort of, the tone is already set, but that, there's work to be done. Nobody had screened this film until I came in. And so once we started screening, people were like, well, I don't understand this. I don't know if I like this character. This relationship, confuses me. By the way, we haven't finished these musical numbers, who is Jonathan Larson? Did he write Rent? Is it Suburbia? There was just a lot to, get under the hood for me. And in a lot of ways, a lot of these ideas were already put into motion. Swimming was in good shape. Sunday, like 3/4 of the number had been shot. They shot even more cameos after I came on. So in a lot of ways, I just had to keep the accelerator on. Make sure that Lin's ideas came to full completion, and also offer myself from my experience from already doing a musical, maybe we need to cut a musical number, which we ended up doing. Maybe we needed to, rework the beginning and end, which we needed to do, and didn't really know at the time. Anyways, long story short, it was a lot of, not even hand holding. It was just because Lin is a very competent first-time director, as you could see from the film, but to some degree, just walking him through what the completion process was like.
Yeah, and you can tell me, if some of these questions don't pertain to your work specifically on the project, but one thing I find so really excellent about the way Lin directed this film, and it's also in the Heights, and we'll speak about that later, is the way that the musical sequences have such movement and they're so dynamic. So in 3090, for example, in Tick, Tick, Boom, it's one song, but it's carried across so many different locations. So I'm just wondering if you had, any hand in that number, how do you make the edit feel really seamless across, we start in the New York Theater Workshop, we're in the diner, we're in the apartment, we're in the Strand bookstore, but it really kind of feels cohesive and seamless.
Yeah, 3090 was probably the biggest thing that I ended up working on in the entire show, and a lot of that, again, the skeleton was there as far as starting with the stage and then moving into these different scenes. But for example, we had to reshoot a scene with the diner, and And one of the reasons why we ended up doing that was to establish these characters early on. And so, but that's not an easy thing to do, to just jam in a scene in the middle of a musical number. So you're doing it sort of as efficiently as you can. And I think to some degree, like, we're able to, by keeping the accelerator on and keeping that sort of driving beat of the song, and we're establishing slice of life of Jonathan Larson, right? So I think we accept it to some degree as a viewer to move through all these locations. At one point, in Jonathan's monologue, and again, Andrew Garfield's brilliant, he's amazing, but if you have a lot of monologue that goes on and on describing everything, then the audience starts to tune out. But if you have, for example, like we used to explain to the audience that we had, he had a YMCA membership at the pool. And we're like, well, do we actually have to say that? Can we just have it sort of embedded in the song? And so I took some shots that Lynn and Andy had used later on in Swimming. I was like, well, I'm just going to establish the same sort of grammar and to some sense jam it in there. But I think by putting it in there, it feeling like slice of life, people just accept sort of moving through these different locations. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that really, it does, to the point you're asking about, or you're mentioning about, the scenes at the Y, it does really come across quite seamlessly, so that when it comes back later in the film, it makes perfect sense.
I mean, at some point we made a big meal out of it. We made a big meal of like introducing like Susan and Michael all in that beginning monologue. We're just like, literally with monologue and explaining his relationship. And we're like, I don't think we need to do it in that way. We can just do it visually, or we could drop into a scene. We could drop into a scene of the diner, or we could drop in a scene of the Strand without having to like, confuse the audience. And then the song is just like, how do you make a song just feel like a live capture, a concert film to some degree? And I think having that energy, that feeling of you're like sitting in the audience, sitting in that theater, I think grounds you to some degree, and it allows you for the later numbers like No More and Sunday and Swimming to all happen, because I think by being grounded in that way, you accept things. Whether, I think if we went straight into fantasy right there, I think it might have like threw the audience off.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a great illustration of the way that editing is really vital to the storytelling of the film, and what needs to be, kind of explicated versus what can just be shown. I do want to ask, and this, could pertain to Tick, Tick, Boom or In the Heights, depending on, what numbers you had a hand in on Tick, Tick, Boom. But I'm wondering, on numbers like No More or Therapy or Swimming, how much the kind of tempi of those songs and the score itself helps dictate, the pacing of the cuts in the edit. I don't know if I think you said Swimming was pretty much done by the time you came on, but, how are you trying to match maybe the tempo of a song in the edit?
Well, Therapy was like a jigsaw puzzle of madness, because there's so many tempo changes throughout the whole number. And so in a lot of ways, you're being forced to cut or create energy based on the song. And in other ways, and both Andy and I recut that thing so many times to be able to not be overwhelmed by the tempo already established. So we were like rewriting, cutting it down, expanding, working with the music editors, working with the composer, Bill Sherman, Alex Lacamoire, to like, how do we speed up to this section? How do we do tempo changes? Come to Your Senses is the same thing. Like we're, recutting that, constantly, like rewriting the song to some degree, in order for it to fit what our needs were. So even though there's for example, the first time the chorus was sung, it used to be Caresses, Vanessa Hudgens' character singing. We're just like, if she sings the chorus, this song's over. It's her song. So we need Susan to do it. We need Alex Shipp to be able to do it. So we pulled out Caresses' part and had Alex Shipp do her version. And so long story short, it's a balance of both. Again, therapy is just like this zany vaudeville Chicago like piece where you're intercutting a fight, and you need the fight to like accelerate at the same pace of the the song, and the song needs to be really long, so you're cutting it down and expanding. And so it's just a lot of tinkering and rewriting and changing the pace depending on your needs.
Yeah, and it does play quite seamlessly, as you're saying. The kind of dramatic scenes and the song really do kind of play kind of very cohesively. Okay, let's turn to In the Heights. And you mentioned a moment ago that you worked with John M Chu on this, director, and you've reunited with him on this project. You worked together on Crazy Rich Asians. So just wanted to get a sense of how much of your collaboration from that earlier film translated to this. Were there processes that were put in place then that you implemented here, or is it, since it's a musical, was it a totally different kind of experience working together?
Well, with John, John is always so he's so open to me just trying to find my own way, with the footage. So to some degree, having the trust with John to be able to just find little kernels of things that like stand on my arm, goosebumps, moments, and then be able to put those in the film. And to be aggressive with the cutting. There was a version of In the Heights that was 45 minutes shorter, and that just seemed like a version of the film lesser than the longer version. And to some degree, like that translated also with working with Lin. Like I can be aggressive and always put it back. I can cut something down. I can take out musical numbers and put them back in. And John is he's just such a fun person to be in the edit room with, to be able to pitch ideas and to have that collaborator to say, yeah, we can put words on the screen here, or we can decide to spin the manhole cover, like a record scratch. We could do that all after the fact. And also keep it grounded, like to keep a film grounded in Usnavi's point of view. That also reminded me when I was working on Tick, Tick, Boom, like I had to, this is all from Jonathan Larson's point of view. Like, so I have to make sure that I'm grounded and like, I like this character. I want to be on this journey with this person. And anyways, you could see like how one sort of influences the other, like being playful, having trust, being able to be bold, keeping things grounded. There's a lot that, In the Heights was such a large scope of a film. Even though we were through Usnavi's point of view, we were telling a lot of different stories within that point of view. And with Tick, Tick, Boom, it's all Jonathan Larson for the most part, and to some degree, it's almost easier to be able to tell a story in a singular way. You could just focus like, this is this person's journey. This isn't like 6 different characters, journey. This is, the ensemble nature of In the Heights was quite daunting. And, but, I don't think I would have been able to pick up the mantle for Andy if I hadn't had that experience on In the Heights. I was like I was ready. I was trained well over the years to work on a musical. I'd done many things that had strong musical elements over the years. But then to be able to go to Tick, Tick, Boom and say, okay, now I've got this version. I've got Lin's baby. I've got Lin's genius. How do I apply all that? There was a lot on the line. This is Lin's first movie. This is. Andrew Garfield was, he had transformed into, Jonathan Larson. So, there's always a lot of that stake with any film, but, I had to make sure we got to the finish line and felt special.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, there are, as you're pointing out, very many similarities on the two films, but the scale of In the Heights is just so much grander. I mean, there are numbers with, you know, hundreds of background actors and 75 dancers and whatnot. So I just wanted to ask about how much you are working as editor during production across departments. So I'm thinking, for example, like in Blackout, where the lighting is so pivotal to, you know, telling the story. How much are you working with lighting to make sure that whatever footage you're getting, you know, can come together in the edit?
Well, just in general, like I have a real close relationship with Alice Brooks, the DP, who is, you know, both on In the Heights and, you know, Tick Tick Boom. And I love Alice so much because mostly because she wants to call me up every day after dailies and say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? You know, what are the things that we could try to do differently? With Blackout, you know, they shot those different pieces over the course of weeks. So it was just literally like trying to like go back to them to say, you know, you're missing this piece, right? Like, you know that you need this. And they're like, oh yeah, no, yeah, we're going to get that. Or, oh no, thank you. Like we've, you know, we still need to shoot that, but maybe we, you know, need to shoot it this way. There was so much visual effects that went into Blackout, like turning off so many lights that we couldn't turn off. You know, crosswalk lights, background lights in stores across the street that they, you know, they're shooting on location, so we didn't have the money to ask every storefront to turn off their lights. So we had, you know, there was a lot of that going on. And then, you know, they did this really clever thing with the lighting to mimic like the different colors of fireworks. And so, of course, we were putting in fireworks later. So, you know, and most of them were analog fireworks shot later, but, you know, we were matching colors and, you know, that sort of bizarre puzzle of like, oh, is that the right color that's bouncing off the building that was shot, you know, like, you know, months earlier. So, you know, that's mostly, the interaction with Alice is more of like big picture, and then, you know, the VFX and stuff like that trying to match later.
Yeah, I spoke to Alice a week or so ago, and it was just really fascinating hearing her experience working on both films as well. Okay, my final question. I just wanted to kind of point out a few of my favorite kind of transitions or cuts in both films, whether it's, you know, the kind of match cut in No More of the elevator doors turning into the subway doors, or that beautiful in Paciencia y Fe in the Heights of the beam of light becoming the subway pole. So just, you know, kind of inspired by my own kind of favorite moments, I wanted to ask you, you know, what are your favorite transitions in either or both films?
Well, definitely on Paciencia Fe, like, you know, though, you know, when I first started seeing those pole lights come down in dailies, I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, first of all, I was like, is this some kind of weird sci-fi like thing? I was like, no, these are actually the like subway poles. Like, this is so brilliant. And then, you know, your brain's like processing what the heck, you know, what am I seeing for the first time? And then understanding that, you know, John had a plan with getting in and out of these scenes, but not really conveying that to me at all. So me, you know, just trying that out for the first time, like without talking to your director, and you're just like, oh, I think this is what they think they're going for, and then you're like, oh my God, it works. Like that's always really exciting for editor, even though, you know, every transition and every scene is really important. Those, like, I don't want to say gimmicky like versions, but there, you know, there's something a lot of fun and playful about that. And, you know, I'm just trying to think, you know, there's really clever little things like like on Tick Tick Boom, it's really small, but there's this really clever way of getting from the middle of 3090 to the diner scene. It's literally like a pan wipe, but it wasn't designed. So in order to like make that feel fluid, and, you know, in a lot of ways that is a big part of why that number feels so fluid, because we're creating some transitions that are like designed really well, and some is, you know, we're just forcing in the edit, like those little things that you would never even notice. Like I get, you know, I get giddy about, because I'm like, oh yeah, we made that in the edit, and isn't that cool, you know? And yeah, I think that's Is that good enough?
Absolutely. Myron Kerstein, congratulations on both In the Heights and Tick, Tick, Boom. Thanks so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.